They got me set up like I'm a serial killer right now. Are you? No, I'm not. I'll pass any polygraph you throw at me. I have no reason to lie.
If you passed him pushing a grocery cart, you'd never know that inside his head he just thought about how to kill you.
My daughter went on a run this morning, and she's been gone a lot longer than I expected.
There's no doubt in my mind he would have continued slaughtering young women and girls.
Female jumped out of a white dually. She needs an ambulance. She can't walk.
It's like we have a predator in our neighborhood.
He had the capacity to become a serial killer on a scale that is difficult to even imagine.
Just southwest of Oklahoma City lies the tiny town of Anadarko. Population 6,000.
It's just your average rural Oklahoma town. Not a real high crime rate. Everybody's pretty laid back. There's not a lot there to miss or see, really. When you meet somebody new, you ask them who their people are, because you're going to know somebody in their family.
Everyone in Anadarko knows Kathy Dobry and her daughter, Tiffany.
My name is Kathy Dobry, and I'm the mother of Tiffany Dobry Johnston. She was always with me before she got married. She was my shadow. That's what everyone called her. Tiffany was very energetic, loving, caring, hyper. She cared about everyone. She liked animals. She liked to play in the dirt. She wanted to study the plants and see how they were formed and what have you, because she could grow just about anything she set her mind to.
Tiffany and I became friends in junior high. I was new to town, new to the area, and didn't really know anybody, didn't have any friends, didn't have much going for me. And Tiffany was the type of person that was going to take care of you. She just decided she was going to be my friend since I didn't have any. Her and I were friends from then on.
Shortly after graduating high school, Tiffany marries her childhood sweetheart.
She said she was madly in love with Ryan, and all girls should marry their first sweetheart. She was determined to get married, and she did.
The young couple moved to nearby Bethany. Ryan is employed at a manufacturing plant, while 19-year-old Tiffany works 2 jobs so she can afford a new car.
She traded her car in on her new white Neon. She was so proud of that. She was always cleaning it out or washing it, because she was proud of it. It was something that she worked for that she got.
On July 26, 1997, the newlyweds planned to meet at a club after work.
Tiffany had gotten off work, and then she went and cleaned out her car, or washed her car, because it was hers and Ryan's 3-month anniversary.
I was actually working patrol at that time, and I drove by the Sunshine Car Wash. There was about 4 vehicles that were there, people still washing their car. And I did observe a white vehicle in the furthest west stall that had no one around it. It was about 45 minutes later, I was again driving by that car wash, And now there were no vehicles other than that one white car in the far west stall. And there was nobody around the car. We did not see anyone around the car wash at all. Detective Mobley looked in the passenger side, and he advised me that the keys to the vehicle were still in the ignition. That kind of raised our concern. So we started to look into it a little deeper. Myself and Mobley made entry into the vehicle to try to find a phone number or a name of someone that we might be able to contact. We did end up locating a number with the word mom on it.
The Bethany Police Department called around midnight. They wanted to know if Tiffany had a white car and if I knew where she was. I started calling people I knew that she might go to. No one had heard from her, no one had seen her. And this is like at 2 o'clock in the morning. So by the time we got up here at the car wash, they had everything blocked off. Down deep, you knew that with all her personal belongings in her car, that she had been abducted and she was probably not alive.
A frequent visitor to the car wash is 38-year-old William Reese, who Kathy knows from his time in Anadarko.
He was always in trouble. He stole vehicles. He stole from grocery stores or what have you.
He had been in jail. He'd already been in prison. He had just gotten out shortly before this happening.
So William Reese was born in 1959 in Oklahoma. And so it was a pretty depressed area that he grew up in. He had a difficult upbringing, an unstable childhood. He was one of 13 children. He was in foster care system for a while. He was forced to quit school in the 9th grade and go to work. So this is somebody, I think, who got a pretty tough start in life. There was probably a combination of neglect with so many siblings and there being a lot of financial instability. And I think it would have been a pretty harsh upbringing in a lot of respects. There was a lot of suspicions that he was abused at some point.
13 siblings, a family background, being moved around. You have lots of negative risk factors in front of Reese.
That marriage did not last very long. And it fizzles out pretty quickly because of how William Reese is treating his wife. He's drinking and he's physically abusive to her. And she ends the relationship. This is somebody who, for whatever reason, doesn't respect women, feels entitled to behave however he wants to, likely blames everything that's wrong in his life on other people. And those are things that do not bode well in terms of his relationship with other women in the future or his ability to adjust and adapt effectively to life as an adult. His ex-wife said that he was unusually close to his mom. And she even made the comment at one point that she felt like his mom was so protective of him that, quote, if he kills somebody, she would help him hide the body.
It's one day since Tiffany Dobry went missing, with her car left at a Bethany car wash. Around 50 miles away, Oklahoma City police make a gruesome discovery while investigating their own missing persons case.
As they were investigating that scene, they canvassed the area and then ended up finding Tiffany's body on that same road about 100 yards down.
You're asking yourself, who did it? Why would someone want to kill Tiff?
You didn't think about your friend just getting murdered. for no reason out in the middle of nowhere like that. It just didn't happen.
The thing that always kind of bothered me the most is that Tiffany and Ryan, they just started their lives together. And within 3 months, it got taken away. If they had their full life together, what would have come of that?
And so we went down a list of people for the police to check out because we didn't know what else to do. And it's the first thing that Mama thought of too, so I can't say that it didn't enter our minds, because it did. You don't know if he was really at work or not. You know, he could have took off.
In any case where you have someone that has disappeared, you know, you always got to start with people that are close and family members. So absolutely, he was looked at.
Police soon determined Tiffany was last seen alive shortly after 6 p.m. on July 27th. Her husband was at work from 3 p.m. until 11 p.m. and is cleared of any suspicion. Bethany police conduct a background check on local sex offenders, including William Reece. They find no evidence linking him to the crime scene. Tiffany's mother knows Reese's mother, who offers to prepare Tiffany's clothes for her funeral.
Her name was Pat. She wasn't a friend, but she was an acquaintance because she did my ironing and what have you for me. And so we took Tiffany's clothes down to her for her to press them for us, because she called and said she would do that.
In 1986, he kidnaps a woman and he rapes her. And at that point, I think he has taken a hard turn in his life, because now he is making choices that the vast majority of people would never make. He's become a criminal. He's become a predator.
He was driving a truck and going to pick up a load, and he picked her up en route. Her car broke down under a overpass, and he stopped and asked if she needed help. He kept on her, and then she finally agreed and got in the truck with him.
Reese is arrested, but released after posting bail. He attacks again 1 month later.
He rapes one woman while he's awaiting trial for raping another woman. I don't know how you get any more of a definition of a predator than that.
Both of these victims survive their ordeal and have their identities protected. Reese stands trial on 2 counts of rape. He is found guilty and sentenced to 25 years in prison.
For an individual who is inside of a correctional institution for years, that day is filled with boredom. Our environment creates our propensity to be involved in crime. Well, just think of it. You're surrounded by other people who have committed crimes. One learns to associate with certain people. One has to protect themselves inside of a correctional institution. A lot of time to think.
Reese's attorneys claim errors were made during his trial, and after serving 10 years of his 25-year sentence, convicted rapist Reese is released early. He briefly lives with his mother in Anadarko before moving 7 hours away to Houston, Texas.
My daughter went on a run this morning, and she's been gone a lot longer than I expected.
And what's your name, please, sir?
Bob Smither.
12-year-old Laura Smither goes for a jog in her Friendswood, Texas neighborhood and never returns home.
I'd never seen anything quite like this before. I mean, you had people from everywhere coming out of the woodwork, searching for this young girl. They were going through fields, they were searching in bodies of water everywhere.
Laura's body is found 17 days later in a retention pond in nearby Pasadena.
That's a day I will never forget because you had a father and son that were out there, they were training a hunting dog. Hunting dog hits on something in the water, father and son go out there to see what's going on. And this is the part that, I mean, just so chilling because the dad looked at the son and says, I wonder what kind of animal that is. And the son looks back at the dad and says, Dad, animals don't wear socks. William Reece became a suspect early on because he was a convicted sex offender out of Oklahoma, and that's fairly standard when you have a child disappear like this. Police start looking at registered sex offenders in the area. More than that, Reece had a construction job near this spot. It got rained out the morning Laura disappeared, so he would have been going home, and that would have put him along her route about the time she disappeared. There were fibers that were found that matched floor mats in his truck. The fibers were unique, but they weren't so incredibly unique that it's like, okay, these fibers could only possibly have come from William Reece's truck. It wasn't unique enough. And honestly, fibers are not DNA. A lot of that evidence had been destroyed because Laura was left in water.
This is a 12-year-old child. And what that tells me is one of two things. Either William Reece did not recognize how young she was when he grabbed her. I don't believe that. Number two is that this is somebody who is sexually interested in this age group and is willing to take advantage of an opportunity and rape and murder somebody who is that innocent and that young.
While under police suspicion and within their custody, Reece speaks with a Texas news channel to profess his innocence.
Who are they gonna look at first? An ex-con. Especially if you done hard time. You're gonna be a #1 suspect no matter what. And if they can't find nobody, you're gonna be their patsy.
Sandra Sapaw, a 19-year-old pregnant mother, comes face to face with William Reece, just south of Houston.
She goes into a convenience store, and she comes out of the convenience store, sees she has a flat tire. A supposed good Samaritan comes along, oh, let me help you out with that tire, boom. Grabs her, tosses her into the truck, takes off down the freeway.
The fact that William Reece acts so quickly after his release from prison suggests to me that this is somebody who has thought about this and fantasized about this for 9 years while he's behind bars. He tells her to take her clothes off. She bends down to take her shoes off and notices that the car door is unlocked. And she, at that point, makes a very important decision.
This may be my last opportunity. The more secluded, the more away, the more the person is going to their environment rather than being in my environment, takes the advantage away from you.
I would rather die jumping out of this car and leaving my fate in my own hands than suffer whatever is about to happen if I stay with this man.
Female jumped out of a white dually. Unknown LP, last seen headed 45 northbound. She needs an ambulance. She can't walk. Okay, we've got an ambulance coming.
With Sandra now safe, police begin questioning her, hoping they can find her kidnapper before he attacks again. "20-year-old Kellyanne Cox goes missing in Denton, Texas.
Kelly Cox was a beautiful single mom college student in what is essentially kind of a college town of Denton, Texas. She had just wrapped up a school field trip. She was studying the area of criminal justice, and she stopped at this convenience store, and unfortunately, that's where she crossed paths with William Reece. She just vanished into thin air. And that's what's, again, so frightening about all of this.
It's somewhat mind-boggling, on the one hand, that William Reece continues his killing spree after Sandra Sapal manages to get out and escape. William Reece is so focused on finding young women that kind of fit his prototype and sexually assaulting them, abducting them, that he's not even concerned about Sandra Sapal. He is thinking about his next victim and finding her.
Kellyanne Cox's disappearance in Denton, Texas is around 3 hours away from Tiffany in Oklahoma. At the time of Tiffany's abduction, Kathy Dobry has no idea of these other cases. "17-year-old high school student Jessica Kane goes missing near Houston.
Just like the others, had her entire life ahead of her, high school student, out with friends after a school event. Jessica was always very well behaved, never violated curfew, anything like that. So when she didn't come home on time, her parents were instantly worried, and her truck was found parked on the side of Interstate 45. Like Laura, it was like she just fell into a hole in the universe, just vanished into thin air. But the truck was there. Purse was in the front seat. Didn't even really appear there was any kind of a struggle. Oh, it's terrifying. It's like we have a predator in our neighborhood. People in the area were like, who is hunting our children?
What we have is an apex predator, an individual that has opportunity combined with skills and additionally being punished for the criminal act in the past, but not being deterred.
I have always thought that the killing part of it for him was more pragmatic. That I'm not going to leave a victim to point their finger at me again. My needs are more important than anybody else's, and I'm gonna make sure that nobody's left to identify me.
Kathy Dobry still has no idea who killed her daughter. Police have no suspects and don't suspect William Reece is involved. But 450 miles away in Texas, kidnapped survivor Sandra Sapal is now facing him in a lineup. He's being asked to repeat the lines Sandra heard her kidnapper shout.
You have made a loud, clear voice. Do not explain. Do not explain. Then allow ones in the truck. Meet the truck. Allow ones okay. Okay.
The net is closing around Reese in Texas, but will he be linked to the murder of Tiffany Johnston, 450 miles away? Three months after the murder of Tiffany Johnston, Sandra Sapah has identified William Reece as her kidnapper, 450 miles away in Texas. As authorities gather evidence to prosecute him, the owner of the Sunshine Car Wash, where Tiffany was last seen, recognizes Reece in news reports. He tells Oklahoma police that Reece is a frequent customer, but investigators still have no way of linking Reece to the crime.
We checked people that lived in the area that had serious criminal histories, and none of those came to fruition. No forensic evidence at that time, and there weren't cameras in that area that we could rely on for evidence purposes. So it truly came to where we believed whoever committed this came from outside of the community.
Bethany police passed the case to the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation, but still no leads. 9 months pass by, and Tiffany's mother, Kathy Dobry, makes a solemn vow.
We had lots of redbirds around that day. And where we live is American Indians, and I'm part Indian, and we believe in the redbirds. When the redbirds come to see you, it's a visit from your loved ones from heaven. I told her that I would find who murdered her and get justice for her, because it just wasn't right. They took away my youngest child.
If something were to ever happen to anyone in my immediate family, Kathy is the first person I'm calling to start looking into it. She does not know how to give up. She does not quit. And she knew that one day we'd get there, we just didn't know when.
Each anniversary of Tiffany's murder is met with an eerie coincidence.
Every year on Tiffany's anniversary date, which is July the 26th, there would be little necklaces, bracelets, and we'd gather these up. We didn't touch them. We put on gloves like you're supposed to, and we'd give them to the OSBI.
It was concern of members of the department, and I think it's part of the family, that the suspect might have been the one leaving these trinkets.
They would just show up every year at the same time, and nobody would ever own up to putting them there.
Kathy's dogged determination finally gets results in her daughter's cold case. Advanced DNA testing is performed using the evidence collected from Tiffany's body. It reveals a partial profile of her killer. Investigators compare this to DNA swabs from her ex-boyfriends, husband, colleagues, and even patrons seen at the car wash the day of her murder. All are excluded. Yet to be tested is Anadarko resident William Lewis Reece, a known sex offender and frequent visitor to the car wash. Police also look for a link between Tiffany's killing and the crimes in Texas and realize a striking connection: the Interstate 45 corridor.
A perfect formula does come together to allow these criminal activities to take place. Access, very important. So here you have an area south of Houston, Texas, before the very end in Galveston, in which one can be on the interstate highway and quickly be in another state or another part of this huge state of Texas very quickly.
In many respects, Texas is a serial killer's dream. You can go for miles and miles without seeing anybody. There's actually a part of Texas that is infamous for being called the Texas Killing Fields, because they've discovered about 30 bodies of young women there that have been unsolved.
Now we have a pattern. We have something to actually look at, something that's solid. We have other cases that we can study along with ours to help get closure for all of them.
It's a horribly frightening thing, especially as a father of two, to think that there are humans out there that walk around, look at another human, go, I want that, I'm going to take that, and they do.
By January 2014, the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation is closing in on suspected serial killer William Lewis Reece and seeks to obtain his DNA. Reece is easy to locate. He was successfully convicted for the kidnap of Sandra Sapah and is serving a 60-year sentence in a Texas prison.
Sandra Sapah is the reason the murders stopped. I give her an amazing amount of credit because she was brave enough to escape him, and she was brave enough to never ever waver, never be intimidated, never be too scared to identify him and stick through that all the way to the end. He was convicted, and the only reason no one else was murdered is because he went to prison, and that was because of Sandra Sapah.
Authorities swab Reece for his DNA and compare it to the partial profile taken from Tiffany's body. The results indicate Reece could be the killer.
We believe that he was probably the person that did it. It was just finding that link to be able to put it all together. You want to do everything you can to find that link, and I mean, look, it took a decade for that link to finally come to fruition.
Texas authorities discover another critical clue as they investigate the link between Reece and Tiffany's murder. Long-distance phone cards.
So he had these cards, and he used one of them to make a phone call, and that was still in his truck when Friendswood police impounded it, and that wound up being some very key evidence that Oklahoma authorities used.
So investigators go to William Reece and basically let him know that the gig is up and that they have DNA linking him to Tiffany Johnston. And I think that at this point, William Reece is somewhat panicked because he is well aware of the fact that Oklahoma has the death penalty. And so he is in prison in Texas at this point. And so I think he decides that if I'm cooperative with some of these other unsolved murders, perhaps I can avoid the death penalty in Texas and won't be extradited to Oklahoma to potentially face the death penalty there.
With this new information linking Reece to Tiffany's murder as a bargaining tool, investigators question Reece about the murders of Laura Smither, Kellyanne Cox, and Jessica Kane. He reveals where police can find the bodies of Jessica Kane and Kellyanne Cox. His cooperation means Reece won't face the death penalty for these murders.
He's a chess player. He knows how to use his pawns. He knows how to use his pieces, which pieces to sacrifice when to get what he wants. And I feel that he has used his victims as those pieces and played them against law enforcement to gain favors. And I don't think that we will ever know how many of those pieces he has held back to play later.
There's no reason to believe that there are not more that are out there. This is where further investigation can take place. But then there becomes a question for the individual. How much more information am I going to give you? If I'm already here for the rest of my life, what advantage do I have?
Reese doesn't confess to any other murders. He claims he accidentally hit Laura Smither while she was jogging along the side of the road.
So I picked her up, and her head was rolling around backwards. I put her on the floorboard of my truck on the passenger side, and I shut the door, and I had this little blanket, and I laid it on her. Took off. I don't remember how I got out where I was, some detention pond. I laid her in the water, and I went home.
Reese doesn't say any more about Kellyanne Cox, just that he got into an altercation with her at a convenience store.
Opened up my door and boom, I run right into her and the coke went all over me. And we got into it there and she hit me with that coke. When I hit her, she hit her head. You know how your door opens up? Mm-hmm. Her head hit there and she slid back. She was out. I put her in the back seat. She never woke up. She wasn't breathing or nothing. She never woke up. And I dug me a little hole and put her in it.
Reese confessed, but they were carefully crafted confessions to where he upheld his end of the bargain, that I'll tell you what happened, but he never really fully told police what he did.
When you listen to his confessions or you hear his confessions, it's just amazing how he distorts clearly what happened. They'll talk about murdering somebody, but they won't admit to assault, sexual assault for some reason. Or they'll do what a lot of murderers do, which is find ways to what we psychologists call neutralize their actions. So that might mean blaming the victim, which he definitely did. You know, oh, this person started it. We got into a match. You know, oh, this person, we got into some kind of argument about spilling Coke on me. I can't think of a better description of somebody who has no compassion, empathy, or caring for his victims. They truly are objects for him to fulfill his sexual fantasies.
Reese also claims an argument ensued with Tiffany Johnston at the car wash.
Next thing I know, this girl was yelling at me that I sprayed her. I don't think I sprayed her, but she was cussing and everything. So when I grabbed her around the throat, started choking her. She wasn't moving no more, and I shut the door and I backed out.
Did you try to have sex with any victims?
I don't think so.
Okay. I guess I don't think so. It kind of opens up some doors.
Well, I mean, as far as I know, no.
My vow was to find who murdered her and get justice for her.
William Reese is convicted of the kidnapping and first-degree murder of Tiffany Johnston. He is sentenced to death.
The day that we got our conviction on Reese, the Redbirds were lined up outside our house on the light pole all the way across the line, and they were everywhere. Tiffany knew then that Mom got justice. I'm persistent, and like I said, she was my baby, and I made her a promise, and I carried it out.
He was ice cold, arrogant. When they showed the pictures of his victims' bodies, of what he had done, he would smile and lick his lips.
Tiffany gave her life to help the parents in Texas, bring some closure to them, because if it hadn't been for Tiffany's case, Texas wouldn't have had anything.
Reese accepts a plea deal, and in addition to his current sentence for Sandra Sapaw's kidnapping, he is sentenced to a further 3 life terms in a Texas prison for the murders of Jessica Kane, Kellyanne Cox, and Laura Smither. William Reece is currently serving his prison sentences in Texas.
So he still owes the state of Texas time for Sandra Sapaw's kidnapping and now for the murders of Laura, Jessica, and Kellyanne. There's an appeal process in Oklahoma. My sneaking suspicion is when he runs out of appeals in Oklahoma and they actually set a date for his execution, he will be extradited back.
We got justice for Tiffany in the court system, but he's getting to do what he wants to. He can go to the library, he can work on horseshoes, leather, or whatever he wants to do, and that's not justice for Tiffany. How could someone that I ran across, knew his mom, how could he have done that?
Kathy suspects it was Reese's mother, Patsy, leaving trinkets on Tiffany's grave.
There's not a doubt in my mind that it was her, because I think she felt guilty because she knew that her son had murdered Tiffany. And so that was her way of being at peace with the idea that she wouldn't talk to the police or wouldn't tell them. Every year you could guarantee there would be something out there. And even to this day, when Tiffany's anniversary date comes around, we always check on the 26th to see if anything has been placed on Tiffany's grave that we don't know. And nothing has showed up since Pat died.
I just want to know why we haven't been able to bring him back. I want to know why the DA will not sign off to have him brought back and put on death row. He took my friend. He took one of the best people I've ever known in my life. And he robbed the world of something great. I don't know what her plans were after college, but whatever they were, she was going to be great at it.